Hey, this is Pat Martin, and I'm going to go over another visualization that I just put together today, integrated from some awesome work done by Peter Cooke, who produced something called a circular heat chart. And what's interesting about this heat chart is that there are labels across the segment, so that's one dimension, and then there's labels across the radii, across the radius. So there's a second dimension, and the third dimension is expressed like your typical heat map where the larger values are going to be more pronounced colors if your scale in this case is from white to red. So the large values are here 6 a.m. on a Monday, it looks like. So I've taken this visualization, integrated into Dex, and added a bunch of other features into the visual, and I'm going to jump into that real quick. So I'm going to create one from scratch real quick, and I'm going to jump over here, and I need to find, there's getting to be so many components that I'm having a hard time finding them. I need to figure out a new way to organize stuff, but I'm going to load a data source here, and what it's going to have is going to be sales data simulation. So in this case, it's going to have a number of products, it's going to have a min and max year, which would be the year range, and then there's going to be a sales range, and it's going to generate random data, in this case between 0 and 1000 for the year 2012, and we're only going to have a single product. So this is going to be just a pretty simple initial data set, and after we demonstrate that, we'll jump into some more complex stuff. So let me next find the view data, and then let me throw the whoops, I threw two of them in there. Let me execute it just so we can see the data real quick. So we have one widget, and it goes from January to December 2012. So not a huge data set, but it's good for the initial exploration of this new component. So let's see, what did I call it? Oh, here it is, circular heat. So let me execute, and kind of pops up kind of tiny. I need to change these defaults. So I'm going to start off with inner radius and make that a little bit larger, and then I'm going to set the stroke width to 1, and at the very, so this is a very simple data set. So we can see a ring here, we can see the widget 1 label, we can see the time, and if you mouse over to a segment, it'll tell you, hey, this is widget 1, January 2012, and the value here is 631.46. A lower value over here, 394.41. And another thing I've done here is I've also added some user aids here, in the sense that if you scroll over, it'll tell you about the options. You can disable it with Alt C, which I'll do there, and then I'll re-enable it with Alt C. So if you don't want to see that, you can make it appear, disappear. You have the height, you have the width, you have the inner radius, yada yada yada. So simple data set here, and again, we can play around with a lot of these things interactively. We can adjust the segment height, and if you notice here, we kind of scrolled off, so I'm going to change this width to be able to accommodate the size of the SVG, and we'll play around with some of the more other features here. We can change the font size, so on and so forth. Now, if I wanted to change the color range here, I could say, let me go from white to maybe blue. There you go. Maybe we go from white to blue, or let's say, I don't know, light green to green. No idea what that'll look like, but there it is. So I'm going to go back to the Groovy script here. I'm going to change the number of products, and let's throw a bunch more data into here. Let's add 5 products, and let's track the sales over, let's say, I don't know, 3 years. Maybe we'll, yeah, let's stick to 5 products, so we don't want to be too overwhelming, but hit execute, and it's a little more involved, and again, these defaults are horrible, but I'm going to change the inner radius to 100. Still not enough. Change it to 150. We're getting there, but not quite. 200, and looks like we scrolled off the size of the width here, so I'm going to add a little bit more, and let's see, maybe I'll adjust the segment height. So maybe that's the right thing to do. Give a little more room for this stuff to breathe in. And again, now we need a little more height. And I'm going to add a little bit more font size. And that's probably good enough for now. The next thing I want to go into are some of the coloring methods. So I'm going to change this from white to blue. I just kind of like that better. And I'm going to switch over to a logarithmic scale. So what you see here is a lot of things shifted over to a darker palette, and it simply applies the logarithmic function on top of the data before it maps it, and then it maps it into the color ranges. So that can be pretty useful. And here we got, looks like I have a bug there, exponential. That should say square root, I think, instead of exponential, so I'll have to change that. That's the problem when you code something up and you immediately jump into a demo. And I'm going to shift over to the quantize. Now this is kind of interesting. So this does an all or nothing mapping between the colors. So it's going to map a value as either white or blue in this case. But the nice thing about this is let's say we want to maybe identify salesmen that are in jeopardy in certain months, and let's color them red. So this will be on the low range. And let's say salesmen that are doing so-so, they can be orange, and then we'll move over to yellow, and then we'll go to white, and then we'll go to on the plus side where the sales are pretty good, we'll go to light green, and then we'll finally go to green. So when I hit return there, what I see are all the sales numbers are color coded. So if we move over here, we can see, oh, okay, out of $1,000 worth of possible sales, you made 154. That puts you in a red category. Over here in the orange, 334. In the white, which is I guess a break even, it's around 687. And then the light green, 755. And the dark green is going to be on the very high end. So a very nice way to map things into deciles. Sometimes those slight gradients that you see in things like like a linear mapping are just not informative enough. Sometimes you need some more color separation, I guess is the right word. I'm not really sure. So next we can play around with the stroke width, and like I said before, any of these I added tooltips for everything, so hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. And again, we can add a title. Nice thing about this is go right in the middle, use that donut space wisely, and that is, oh, not quite it. So next we can save this visual, save it into a file, circular heat, and actually that's kind of ugly. Let me I got in the way there. So let me quantize it so we can see the various colors and move this. We'll call it sales figures for, what is it, 2010 through 2012. Move that into the middle, and now I'm going to hit Control S, save that, and like with most of the Dex visuals, you can jump directly to the visual, and in this case I have the directory mapped here. Let's see, circular heat, and there's the visual. And you don't need a web server. If you look up here, you can see that I'm jumping directly to the file. So one of the key things Dex does, sometimes it's kind of painful to me, but one of the key things Dex does is it's going to serialize all the JavaScript dependencies into a file so you get a single asset. And that is it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the blog article and maybe generate a handful of demos so people can get their hands on it and play with the settings and give me feedback back. And again, I really would like to thank Peter Cooke. He really did some awesome base work here, and he did the lion's share of the work, and I just tweaked it a little bit to pull it into Dex. And Peter, thanks a lot. And that's it for now.